You have two bills for us, Mr. Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Let me start with AB 1239, the Tire Recycling Incentive Program. Californians generate 42 million used passenger tires every single year, and the management of these tires has proven difficult. Illegally dumped tires pose a significant cost to local governments in the state. Large abandoned tire piles have resulted in week-long fires, and the overall recycling rate for tires has remained largely stagnant. In order to drastically increase tire recycling, in addition to the intrinsic environmental and economic benefits of recovering this material, CalRecycle recently recommended that the legislature implement an expanded incentive program that provides payments for desired end use of tires. This is part of CalRecycle's 5-year plan. AB 1239 will help expand the state's tire recycling infrastructure to reduce greenhouse gases, create jobs, and cut the statewide and local costs associated with tire pile cleanup. Specifically, AB 1239 will establish a tire recycling incentive program to provide an incentive payment to end users of recycled tires, including local governments that use tires as rubberized pavement, as well as California manufacturers who produce consumer products using recycled tires. AB 1239 also gives CalRecycle the authority to increase the state tire fee to cover the costs of regulating waste tires. Much like California's successful plastic market development program, existing California-based manufacturers of rubber-based products could be utilizing these waste tires by recycling them, thereby reducing pollution, illegal dumping and waste, and all the while increasing jobs and economic opportunity. I'm happy to accept the amendments suggested by the committee and will gladly work with the committee staff should this bill move forward. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
We have testimony.
Hi, good morning, or good afternoon. Nick Lapis with Californians Against Waste. This bill is really designed to address two separate issues related to tire recycling that are fundamentally intermingled, and that's the issue of the very low recycling rate and the very heavy costs to local governments in dealing with illegally dumped tires. Despite significant funding and human resources that have been expanded by CalRecycle over the past 2.5 decades, the tire recycling rate continues to be pretty much flat and stagnant for California, and illegal dumping continues to pose a significant cost both to the state and to local governments. And this despite the fact that tires are very easily recycled and are collected separately right now. This disconnect has been a subject of discussion for many years now, including analyses by several statewide organizations over the past 2.5 decades. About every 4 years, some state entity looks at this issue and comes up with recommendations, and the recommendations are almost always the same. The recommendation is always to fund recycling on the back end to pull the tires through the system, as opposed to trying to chase them down and require manifesting and hauling and other requirements that track the tires through. This was first recommended in 1992. It was most recently recommended last week when CalRecycle adopted their vision for the future for the tire program in their 5-year plan. As Mr. Gordon mentioned, AB 1239 copies the tire recycling incentive program, bases it on existing programs that we have, including the plastic market development program that he authored. We know it's a model that works, it's a proven model, and it helps to both recycle more tires, but also to reduce illegal dumping and to reduce the incentive for the tires to be handled improperly.
Good afternoon, Kara Martinson on behalf of the California State Association of Counties, also in strong support. In the interest of time, I'll just concur with the comments of my colleagues and state that local governments are very supportive of expanding tire recycling infrastructure in California. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair, Justin Malone for the Stop Waste, the Alameda County Waste Management Authority, in strong support of this bill.
Charles Watson on behalf of California Local Conservation Corps in support. Thank you.
Witnesses in opposition? Witnesses with testimony neither in support nor opposition to the committee? Questions, comments? Mr. Hadley?
Mr. Gordon, thank you. Can you help me understand the relationship between the new fee and the old fee, the fee that is currently levied on purchasers of tires versus the new fee that is proposed to be levied on the retailers that sell these tires?
We have a current program around waste tires. In order to create this incentive program, we add an additional fee. And so it's really the difference here is to creating the incentive program with the additional fee.
So we're just adding a fee. This is structurally the same.
No. Currently, funds are given to try to capture these tires, get them out of the waste stream. What we don't do is provide any support for an end product to reuse these tires. So, for example, there's a program that a lot of local governments would love to use, having rubberized asphalt. But there's no incentive for them to do that at present. This would create the incentive to actually create greater demand for that product.
So if I might, the existing tire fee has pretty broad discretion in terms of what it can be used for, and there are market development programs as part of that. CalRecycle has existing authority to implement something similar to what we're proposing. The problem is that they don't if they were to do that, they wouldn't have enough money to do their regulatory functions and their administrative functions and permitting and all those other things. So this is creating a new regulatory charge that is just their actual cost of regulating these facilities that is not including any other costs, and then their existing program will continue to provide incentives and will actually be able to expand and provide greater incentives.
So this is a new regulatory charge to free up existing revenue for which there is broader discretion under the statutes?
Correct.
Yeah. The one other wrinkle here is that when you buy a tire, you actually pay usually two separate fees as it is. You pay a fee to the state, but you also pay a disposal charge, which is set by the individual tire shop. It's not required in statute. We're hoping to create strong enough recycling markets that recyclers will actually be able to buy tires instead of charging for them, which would allow tire haulers to significantly reduce their rates. And so we're hoping that the disposal charge will go down as a result for consumers.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the committee? The amendments just correct some minor drafting errors. Just for that clarification, would you like to close?
Again, again, we are accepting the amendments and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Chair's recommendation is aye. Do we have a motion? A motion by McCarty. Do we have a second by Stone? Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly? No. Dolly, no. Garcia? Hadley?
No.
Hadley, no. Harper? No. Harper, no. McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Rendon? Aye. Rendon, aye. Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Wood?
Has 4 votes. We'll leave that on call.
Thank you.
And 1482.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. California has been a leader in taking actions to impact the causes of global climate change, and yet the climate continues to change. It's time for California to become a leader in adapting to climate change. The Natural Resources Agency has described adaptation as efforts that respond to the impacts of climate change, such as adjustments in natural or human systems to actual or expected climate changes that would minimize harm to take advantage of beneficial opportunities. Examples of adapting to climate change can include taking action such as moving infrastructure out of harm's way, creating or enhancing wetlands capacity for flood management, and forest management. As the state deals with deepening drought, warmer temperatures, increased forest fires, continued loss of habitat and biodiversity, and the threat of sea level rise, a statewide policy on climate adaptation is needed. In 2014, the Natural Resources Agency adopted the Safeguarding California Plan, an update to the 2009 California Climate Adaptation Strategy. This plan begins to lay out a statewide effort for climate adaptation. However, there's no mechanism for enforcing this plan or ensuring that state agency or department actions are consistent with the plan. Further, while the Strategic Growth Council is tasked with implementing the Sustainable Community Strategy and other planning programs to combat climate change and reduce greenhouse gases, it does not have the authority to also plan for climate adaptation. These two existing state agencies, the Natural Resources Agency and the Strategic Growth Council, are ideal to coordinate California's climate adaptation efforts. AB 1482 would require the Natural Resources Agency, in coordination with the Strategic Growth Council, to review and coordinate existing grants and programs to maximize objectives, such as establishing policy, guidelines, and guidance to inform planning decisions, ensuring that state investments consider climate change impacts, and encouraging regional collaborative planning efforts to adapt to climate change. In addition, this bill would require the Natural Resources Agency and the Strategic Growth Council to identify and coordinate opportunities among its departments in expending state funds to implement these objectives. This bill would also grant authority to the Strategic Growth Council to oversee and coordinate state agency actions to adapt to climate change and identify and pursue opportunities for state agencies to collaborate with federal or local agencies in their climate adaptation efforts. AB 1482 has no registered opposition and enjoys support from environmental groups, the Local Government Commission, as well as the Little Hoover Commission, that see the need to develop policies to address climate adaptation. I appreciate the committee's work on the bill, and we will be taking all of the committee's suggested amendments that were listed in the analysis, and I would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Two witnesses, 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Lyons. I'm the Director of Public Policy for Audubon, California. We work to protect California's birds and other wildlife and connect Californians with their open space, parks, and wildlife. In 2014, Audubon released a report identifying 314 of 588 North American bird species, including 170 species that occur in California, that will be pushed toward extinction due to the impacts of climate change. This is important because not only for what it means for the conservation of wildlife, but what it means for Californians. Birds are excellent indicators of environmental health, and they can often key us into needed action even before humans notice the need for change. As was just mentioned, we already know that climate change is happening, and the need for adaptation is already here. Future droughts will be more frequent and severe. We'll see rising sea level rises, shifting snowpack, and extreme weather events. Some estimates are that a single extreme weather event could cost California $725 billion alone. We know, for example, that the Delta could be compromised, resulting in severe water quality problems for potentially millions of Californians. So we're talking about adaptation in the context of having a California that has a greater population, more and more people, and less habitat. From the birds and wildlife perspective, we're faced with impacts from climate change where we've already lost about 90% of our riparian and wetland habitats, the most biodiverse for birds and other species. And that has very significant impacts for the communities of people that live around there as well. By directing the Natural Resources Agency to take action in coordination, we can be more aggressive in stepping forward on plans in adaptation. It follows the Little Hoover Commission's recommendation in governing California through climate change to have a single body where the science and information can reside, and creates more accountability. It ensures that coordination does not occur, or action does not occur, in a vacuum. This comprehensive and coordinated effort is needed now as we move forward in the future to protect the lives and well-being of Californians and the state's biodiversity. For these reasons, Audubon, California strongly supports the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Jenna Price on behalf of the California League of Conservation Voters. I am also registering support for tree people. Climate change is the foremost challenge of our time. We know this. We already are experiencing impacts in California. The California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment released a report in August of 2013 entitled Indicators of Climate Change in California. That report tracked 36 indicators of climate change and showed that climate change is already occurring throughout California. These impacts include decreasing spring snowmelt runoff, rising sea levels, shrinking glaciers, increasing wildfires, warming lakes and oceans, and the gradual migration of many plants and animals to higher elevations. California has become the national leader on efforts to mitigate the effects of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but much more work needs to be done at the state, local, and regional levels to adapt to the effects of climate change that are already here. Current law does not create a comprehensive state climate adaptation policy, and AB 1482 would provide authority to the Natural Resources Agency and the Strategic Growth Council to coordinate the state's climate adaptation policies and programs. AB 1482 is a significant step forward in ensuring that state agencies, in collaboration with federal and local agencies, are taking the necessary steps and planning efforts to adapt to climate change. Thank you, and we ask for your aye vote.
Other witnesses, just state your name, organization, and in support.
Katrina Robinson on behalf of Land Trust of Santa Cruz County in support, and also here to answer any technical questions.
Mark Fenstermaker on behalf of the Nature Conservancy in support.
Witnesses in opposition? Witnesses with neither support nor opposition? To the committee? Mr. Stone?
Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for bringing this forward. I think over the next few decades, some of the hardest work we're going to have to do in California is adapt, is build this resiliency in. And we know this and have been doing a good job with greenhouse gas mitigation, but these are the steps, the planning tools necessary in working with local governments to be able to address infrastructure changes, protection of wetlands, estuaries, and natural buffer systems that preserve our watersheds and important species. So I appreciate you bringing this forward and would like to be added as a co-author, if I may. Thank you.
Mr. Stone made a motion earlier, due pass as amended to appropriations. I second it and want to make sure that members know that essentially the amendments change rather than the original bill changes to make sure that the agency, that the National Resource Agency identify ways for other state departments and agencies to increase adaptation rather than require them to spend funds towards it before they have identified it. And the author has accepted those amendments. With that, would you like to close?
Simply ask for an aye vote.
Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly?
Aye.
Dolly, aye. Garcia? Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wood? It's got 6 votes.
6 votes.
Thank you.
Bill is out. Mr. Gomez, you put down 2 bills, but you only have 1 because one's on consent.
Correct. I like the one on consent where it is. Thank you.
I asked for more, but...
Mr. Chair and members, today I'm presenting Assembly Bill 1205, which will require the Natural Resources Agency to establish the Cal River program. And to start off, I'm accepting the committee's amendment. The Cal River program will be a competitive grant program for projects on or adjacent to riparian corridors. These projects will achieve the goal of greenhouse gas emission reduction by incentivizing projects that integrate stormwater, natural resource improvements, and reduce vehicle miles traveled. Using our state river system for co-beneficial uses furthers the goals outlined in AB 32 and confirms the value of our natural resources. I have a couple of witnesses to testify on the bill, but I accept the motion and the second.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Juan Altamirano, Associate Director of Public Policy with Audubon, California. We are here today in strong support of AB 1205. Audubon, California was formed over a century ago, and our work primarily centers around conservation, habitat restoration for the benefit of people and bird populations. With over 80,000 members and 40 chapters statewide, our work is diverse and extensive, and it ranges from working with farmers in the Central Valley on farm and wetland restorations to climate change. We strongly support this bill because we know rivers are the lifeblood for many communities. In many communities across the nation, rivers function as a resource of recreation, water supply, and habitat. In recent years, there have been efforts across the state to turn back to our rivers and see them for their untapped potential. Many community groups have developed parkway plans and various visions for restoring these resources, but funding is lacking, and most importantly, we haven't looked at our rivers as a tool to address climate change. Improving and enhancing our waterways will provide numerous adaptation benefits, but more importantly, they can provide for GHG emission reductions and sequestration. By leveraging the existing efforts around the state to revitalize our rivers, we can turn our river systems into a tool to help us solve our climate goals. As an example, the San Joaquin River is one of the largest rivers in California and is probably the most underappreciated. It's called the hardest working river in the world because of its 8 dams and 9 hydroelectric powerhouses. The river runs through a section of the San Joaquin Valley.
I'm just going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Yep.
Each witness gets 2 minutes.
Definitely. Okay. We support this bill because it provides an opportunity to invest in the San Joaquin River for the benefit of the community, climate change, for climate benefit, wildlife, and business resiliency. It establishes a river parkway to create wildlife habitat, provides access to phenomenal natural resources, and it creates and diversifies the jobs through the travel and tourism industry.
You got it.
Hello, Katrina Robinson on behalf of CalTrout in support of this important bill. CalTrout does restoration on rivers and waterways throughout California, including the Eel River, Elk River, Santa Clara River, Hot Creek and Owens Rivers, and the Shasta River. And I also just want to point out, rivers and streams are actually great opportunities for active transportation as well. They're perfect corridors between our urban cores where we can have bike paths and walking paths, and that leads to more economic development, but also active transportation and reduced vehicle miles traveled.
Thank you. Further witnesses, just state your name, your organization, and in support.
Hi, good afternoon. Maria Camacho with the LA River Revitalization Corporation. Just wanted to be brief and here to be very supportive of AB 1205.
Thank you.
Mark Fenstermaker on behalf of the Mountains, Rivers, and Conservation Authority in support.
Jenna Price, California League of Conservation Voters in support.
Charles Watson on behalf of the local conservation corps and the urban core of San Diego County in support. Thank you.
Witnesses in opposition? Witnesses with testimony neither in support nor opposition? To the committee. Mr. Rendon.
I just want to thank the author for bringing this forward. I know he's been a long-time proponent of urban rivers, even before his time in the legislature. He's done a considerable amount of work. This will help his district, my district, and districts throughout the state. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. And there was a motion and second, but you are taking the amendments, right? Okay, so do pass to appropriations as amended. Any other comments, questions? Would you like to close?
Mr. Chair, this bill, I was actually reading the updated scoping plan on AB 32, and this bill fits into the next step of addressing the climate change challenges we have in California, and I ask for your aye vote.
Please call the roll. Chair's recommendation, aye.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly?
Aye.
Dolly, aye. Garcia? Hadley? Aye. Hadley, aye. Harper? No. Harper, no. McCarty? Aye. McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Rendon, aye. Wood? It's got 6 votes.
6 votes. All right, members, while we do need some authors, if we do not see authors, then somebody's going to have to hand me my folder because